I don't think there's a better way to introduce today's video than to just show you this opening in its entirety.
Once upon a time, a blue-eyed boy from the Old West learned one of life's cruelest lessons, that evil was bigger than his gun. So he followed the footsteps of a mysterious master to the Far East, where he learned the secrets of the sword and came back home with the heart of a gunman and the soul of a samurai.
Johnny had a dream of being the biggest hero round. There wouldn't be an enemy that he could not put down with a gun. Well, then one day Johnny met his match and turned his world around. He changed his name and learned the Shogun way of land of the rising sun, rising day. Samurai gunman, rising day. Johnny no more.
You have finally made it, my son. This is the last test and my final lesson for you.
Rising Zen, the Samurai Gunman.
Howdy, howdy, Maxx Deputy X here, and if you're anything like me, after seeing that opening, you're already sold on Rising Zen, the Samurai Gunman. I originally found out about this game some decade or so ago up in Rhode Island when I went to this used game shop and they just had a copy sitting right there on the shelf. $2, what a steal. But Maxx, it's got a great name, it's got a great opening, but just what in tarnation is this game? I'm just kidding, I'm not doing that the whole video. Rising Zen is a 3D character action game developed by UEP Systems and published by Age Tech back in 1999 on the PlayStation 1. You might know UEP Systems for their other Wild West character action games like Cool Borders and Cool Borders 2 and Cool Borders 3. Really, they mostly just made snowboarding games. Now, you may have noticed I said a character action game on the PS1, which is kind of wild. For those who don't know, character action is a colloquial genre term used to describe linear action games with a much heavier focus on intrinsic progression instead of extrinsic. Games like Devil May Cry and pretty much every Platinum game are very score-focused, and as you progress through these games, you're rewarded more with additional moves or weapons rather than incremental stat increases. You're rewarded for getting better, and getting better is what keeps you coming back to play the game so that you can do cooler, more stylish playthroughs that net you a higher score. And honestly, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an example of the genre earlier than Rising Zen. Sure, you have games on the PlayStation 1 like Nightmare Creatures and Soul Reaver, but those games tend to have a much heavier emphasis on exploration and platforming, respectively. Zen is also just a bit more complex than the beat-em-ups of its time, and so, for all intents and purposes, Rising Zen was kind of the pioneer for character action games. So, if you're a fan of those, should you check out Rising Zen? No, absolutely not, no. There's a lot of interesting groundwork here, but you're gonna have a lot more fun listening to me talk about it than you probably would playing it yourself. So saddle up, partner, grab your pocky, and get ready to crack open a nice cold bottle of Ramune, because we're diving into Rising Zen, the Samurai Gunman. let's mosey. Johnny was a young cowboy living in a small pioneer town with big dreams of becoming a hero. During a missing persons investigation, he's suddenly attacked by a gang of mysterious assassins, and after getting the absolute shit kicked out of him, he wakes up to find his late father's old friend Suzuki, and begs him to teach him the way of the blade. And so, after a trip to Japan, Johnny, recently indoctrinated weeb, becomes a master of the blade and the gun, and changes his name to Zan. Wait, sorry, I meant...
It's the super ultra sexy hero, Zan. What the hell are you talking about?
Upon returning, Zan is told that the town has been taken over.
The Jackal. Well, they aren't gonna get away with this. They took my town. They'd better get ready for a surprise.
Wait! You can't beat them alone!
Well, okay, maybe we're not ready to mosey quite yet. The game sort of just starts as soon as you hit new game, so the tutorial is located on the main menu. I wouldn't normally do this, but I thought it'd be fun to go through my handwritten notes that I was taking down during this tutorial, so that you can pretty much get the raw gameplay impressions as they happened. The tutorial's framed with Suzuki issuing a final test to Zan to see if he remembers the major mechanics of the game. Side note, Suzuki is voiced by Charles Martinet, which I thought was really cool.
First, I will check your defense.
Anyway, defensively you have a block, a parry by pressing up block, and a strafe dodge. Simple stuff, but you can pretty much ignore most of it. You have a much better option anyway. So I just wrote down platforming ? Jumped by accident. I sure hope there's no. The next tutorial is platforming. You have a highly committal basic jump that goes extremely far, and you can spin your sword above your head to gain a bit of extra distance. It works terribly for the few moments in the game that call for making it across a gap, but you'll never face a bottomless pit, so at most you just take a bit of damage and move on. Its primary use is clumsily distancing yourself from enemies. Finally, we're on to hitting things. You have a basic sword combo on X and special moves tied to pressing directions on the D-pad, such as up X for a stab, down up X for a jumping slash, and left right X for an AoE slash. Now, while having extra special moves is a good thing, there's one slight problem. Notice how I said up X and not towards X. You see, special move inputs are camera relative, which means you're not inputting towards your enemy to perform the stab, but literally up, no matter which direction you're facing. This is fine whenever you're locked on, but to lock on, the camera needs to be centered on your enemy. And like most 3D games in this era, the camera is unusable. Now there's no analog stick support in this game, so centering the camera is a long press of L1, and lock on is a short press of L1. Two inputs that are easily and frequently mixed up at inopportune times. That's if the camera even wants to rotate at all. If Zan's back is to the wall, the camera will just not rotate, which means you can't lock on. And if you can't lock on, don't expect to actually hit anything. Finally, we have the gun. It shoots whatever you're locked onto, and you have a rapid fire as well. I know the opening said that evil was too big for Johnny's gun, but honestly, it does a pretty damn good job. You have no ammo count, and the only cost is a bit of meter for the rapid fire, so it turns out to be the least risky method of attack. Now, I know I just threw a huge gameplay info dump at you, but that's okay, because the game never evolves past this. No new moves, no new techniques, that's pretty much it. And while if everything functioned normally, that'd be more than enough to fill out an action game, well, I suppose you'll just see. It melted in my hands. Impact 1 of Rising Zan is overall a good introductory level, if a little boring. Every stage starts with an enemy either taunting Zan or giving a general background of the boss you'll eventually be facing at the end of the level. I think the most disappointing part, now that we're actually playing the game, is that during the in-game cutscenes, the enemies all talk in this weird Banjo-Kazooie style that was really off-putting for most of my playthrough. Honestly, it seemed a little offensive, but the game has the same dub across the English localization and the original Japanese version, so I guess it's more of a stylistic choice, but that just means that instead of being problematic, it's just horribly disappointing when compared to the premium cheese delivered in the fully voiced cutscenes. Back to the game, you fight some spooky straw dummies, you save a crucified man, there's a merry-go-round mini-boss, and finally, you corner the first big bad in a church and holy shit, it's a bomb! Pause. I'm gonna let this event play out at its normal speed, and I want you guys at home to think about what you would have done when given this prompt. I won't ask you to comment below or anything like that, but put yourself in the hot seat and really think about 3, 2, 1, go. Did you get it? Because I sure didn't. I saw a string of buttons and figured that it wanted me to follow the sequence as quickly as possible. But no. It wants you to mash everything, just your entire controller. Maybe I'm dumb, but I feel like maybe, just maybe, it could have been communicated a bit clearer, or better yet, throw it in that tutorial I played. Every QuickTime event in the game plays out like this, and I promise that I don't fuck any more of them up. So, here we are, first boss. He's in a flying contraption that circles the stage, so obviously you just shoot at him, realize you aren't doing any damage because even if you're pointing your gun at the enemy, you can't hit them unless you're locked on, accidentally find the devil trigger button, and boom, you've won. Every boss ends with the opportunity to do a cool finisher and... Okay, I'm sorry. I lied. And I promise that I don't fuck any more of them up. I didn't realize how to do these yet. You still end up getting a really cool animation even if you screw it up, though. There's a level-wide style ranking too, but based on the tools you have and how fiddly they are, I don't think I ever scored that high. I'm very excited to have gotten all that boring gameplay stuff out of the way so that we can get back to the real reason that you and I are here. The story. Zan saves a group of damsels from imprisonment now that a part of the town has been liberated, and one just so happens to know him.
Johnny?
Huh? You're
Johnny. No, you're alive.
My name is Zan. I don't know anybody named Johnny.
What are you talking about? It's Val, your neighbor. Don't tell me you've forgotten.
You probably know her too as Girl on Front of Disc. I absolutely love that no one is taking Johnny's weeb shit seriously. Not a single character reacts to him with any sort of reverence at all.
What the hell are you wearing?
What the hell are you talking about? And what's with that outfit of yours?
It's one of the few running jokes in the game that I feel like works, and I don't even know if it's intentional. Val explains that the rest of the town was slaughtered for their gold and offers the totally level-headed solution of...
Can't you just kill them all?
No problem, ma'am. I'm here now.
Yeah, Zan, real heroic. Zan moves through the next town, where the Jackal are planning to blow up a clock tower. There's a moving detonator and a series of bombs on the roof, so the first step is to try and chase down the detonator, and that's the whole level. That's all of it. That's the whole gosh darn thing. Impact 3 is where we start to see a bit of variety in the level design. We have to navigate through a castle to, well, I assume it's for more than killing random dudes. There's a segment right at the start where you have to deflect projectiles at a few totems, and it's fine. It works, I suppose. What didn't work was the collision on this wall. In fact, minor spoiler alert, but I don't think I escape a single platforming segment unscathed. We saw them before very briefly, but every stage has one or more hostages that you can save for bonus points, and man, is this guy having a real bad time. And around this corner, wow. South Park joke. In my Wild West Samurai piece. Sumo boss time, and I found the best method was to treat it like an actual sumo match, as in you stand outside of the ring, just out of Mr. Sumo's range, unloading as many bullets as you can into him until he falls down. Then, you save another random girl who tells you that the boss of the Jackals, Lokai, and that's how the game pronounces it, so I guess that's how I'm gonna mispronounce it.
Lokai.
Has built a castle to the west, which is now their base of operations. Oh, also, that's not a random girl, but the two go through their whole conversation without acknowledging that this is Sapphire, Suzuki's granddaughter and Zan's adoptive sister. Important enough to include as a full, unlockable character with her own campaign, but apparently not important enough to be named in a cutscene, I suppose. Zan heads off on his horse westbound when he comes across a jackal train, and again, this is another cutscene that kinda just speaks for itself.
Turia!
Why is he so fast? You've seen this type of level before, and the pain on this train comes across rather plain. There are these timed car segments where you have to free prisoners as you run and dodge lasers, which I definitely nailed on my first try. Seeing how the music keeps cutting out between each train car, now would probably be a pretty good time to talk about the music. It's fine. In the Racing Games video, I talked about how much I love the general aesthetic of PlayStation 1 games. The grimy, pixelated, terrible 3D visuals combined with the PlayStation core drum and bass soundtracks. It's just such a nostalgic system for me. And Rising Zan's soundtrack, well, it's a soundtrack on the PlayStation 1. Not exactly memorable, but it definitely fits the game and the style that it's going for. I like it in the same way that I like every PlayStation 1 soundtrack by default, but it's really nothing to write home about. That's why I've also been using other cowboy-sounding songs from other games in this video. The level of technology you're up against slowly builds until we eventually make it to the head car, where we're introduced to our secondary antagonist, Mr. Gizmo.
Who are you? It's the super ultra sexy hero, Zan. You have no idea what you are meddling with. Come out, my beloved creation.
Then he summons the classic Mega Man X boss Vile, and it's one of the best boss fights in the game. The fixed camera perspective makes actually hitting him pretty easy, and he has a decent mechanic where you have to destroy these regenerating health pipes. It's pretty good. After defeating Alphonse Ulrich, Zan turns to confront Mr. Gizmo.
It's your turn.
Well, you're better than I thought. I'm sorry, but there won't be any next time for you. You'll be dead sooner or later.
Where are you going?
But unfortunately, he gets to a... Oh. Well... Impact 5 takes place presumably in the town's gold mines. I'm sure based on the setting, you could probably guess the big bad for this stage. That's right, it's Master Hand. This is the level that introduces more enemies that teleport and hit you with ranged attacks, because that's an enemy type that really complements a camera you can't easily rotate. Also, every time you get hit, you lose your lock onto. This is definitely the point where the kind of weird charm of the game was starting to wear off and it was being replaced more with minor annoyances. There just wasn't enough zany antics to distract from the seriously janky gameplay. But then... Okay, that works. That should be more than enough to pacify me for a little. That better not be a minecart. That better not be a minecart. Honestly, the section isn't as bad as I was expecting. That's not to say it controls well, it definitely doesn't. But at the very least, you're never expected to make a split-second jump to avoid an instant kill trap. Quick! Pop quiz! This train will speed up to ram you, forcing you to speed up if you want to avoid damage. How do you accomplish this? Vote now on your cell phones. Conventional wisdom says that holding forward will speed you up, and holding away will slow you down. And you would be absolutely correct. See, exactly like your special attacks, holding up will speed you up, and holding down will slow you down. Turns out the Master Hand actually belonged to a whole Master Shogun, which is kind of disappointing. But don't worry, this boss makes up for it by also teleporting behind you, forcing you to awkwardly snap your camera around to lock onto it just in time to get hit, lose your lock on. Wait, no way.
Yeah! I finally caught you! Are you ready for a rematch? Show me what you've got!
I can't believe you did all this by yourself. But your luck has just run out. Well, I should have terminated you a long time ago. Die.
You dirty bastard! You don't have the spirit of a samurai!
And so Zan, the cowboy who spent a week in Japan and apparently became the utmost authority on what the spirit of a samurai is, escapes the caves and finds himself right in front of the Jackal base. Finally, it's time to storm the castle. The next stage goes by without too much crazy stuff happening. A terrible flying enemy is introduced, but that isn't enough to stop this super sexy ultra hero Zan. But the fact that I couldn't see the right wall texture from the other side of this room might be enough to stop him. The boss for this stage has a really cool design. It's kind of a robot geisha, but unfortunately it's immediately ruined when she speaks.
Kimono, kimo, kimo, kimono, kimono. Kimo, kimo, kimono, de kimono.
Moving on. Oh god, not again, not again! Stage 2 of the castle is a lot more heavily industrialized. You're fighting robots and jumping across moving platforms suspended above electric floors, all set to a song that almost sounds like Bomberman Hero. Almost. But you know what was really missing from Rising Zan the Samurai Gunman? How about two totally unrelated minigames that come out of fucking nowhere? There's a shooting range, and it's alright. By this point in the playthrough, I had kind of stopped caring about points, so I was just autopiloting to the next cutscene. But then there's the baseball minigame. This may have been the hardest timing challenge I have ever faced in any game. No exaggeration. I play a lot of rhythm games, and I'd like to say I've gotten pretty good at hitting an icon as it passes over a particular spot on the screen, but the narrow range that registers a proper hit, combined with the pretty abysmal input delay, means that I was stuck here for way longer than I'd like to admit. Luckily, there's a slot machine a little later on that can give you the majority of your health back. As I said at the beginning of the video, Rising Zan really was one of the first of its type, so a lot of the tropes you'd see in future character action games are also present here. broken and janky as they may be. At the very least, we may have finally found the inspiration for all of the pointless filler content that Platinum keeps putting into their action games. The boss for this stage? It's time for Vile Round 2. This fight is pretty bad by comparison. Rising Zan just loves throwing really fast enemies into square arenas. It's hard to hug the walls because then you can't rotate the camera, and I'm sounding like a broken record, so I'll move on. The penultimate stage is actually pretty cool. Impact 7 has you navigating a series of kabuki theater stages, facing off against a bunch of heavily stylized mini-bosses one-on-one. I died a lot here, and it was not really all that fun to play. But at the very least, I think this stage gets the closest to achieving the original selling point of the game, of being the cool cowboy with the samurai sword, facing an enemy you've never seen in an environment that is completely out of your element. The last boss on the roof of the castle is also surprisingly competently designed. You avoid the enemy's ranged attacks while shooting out the robotic taiko drums powering him, opening him up for melee attacks. I know, it's crazy. It's a boss with set attack patterns that you have to learn so that you can exploit its weaknesses. This is also the only time in the entire game I got a cool rating on my execution, so I figured I'd put it in the video. Final Impact. Little late, but I do enjoy that the stages in this game are called impacts instead of levels. It's funny in the same way that BlazBlue calls its rounds rebels. It's total nonsense, but it's also a lot of fun. This level is just a straight climb to the final boss, separated into a few floors. Stylistically, the flaming walls are really cool, and boy oh boy do I love me a long-ass staircase. Finally, we reach the epic fight with our rival, and...
Oh, you're still alive.
Shut up, sissy!
Whoa, Zan, chill the fuck out!
I'm not letting you go this time!
I can't stand this dog anymore.
Let's see what you've got.
It's a pretty challenging fight. Not for any of the reasons you would want it to be, though. Lots of running away to bait Lokai's projectiles so that you can fly over and punish. Don't hit him too many times, though. You can't cancel your melee attacks into a jump or, God forbid, a block. But wait, for there is a phase 2! He gets spooky skeleton armor, and it's the same thing. Honestly, I was pretty disappointed as a fan of good video game rivalries. Lokai is the man that forced Johnny to confront the truth that he didn't have the strength or the skill to realize his dream of becoming a hero. The man that transformed the Johnny who drank Jack and Coke into the Zan that drank soju and sake. Alright, I'll stop. The fight isn't the worst in the game, but it's a pretty bland note to end on. Which, of course, it doesn't. Mr. Gizmo absorbs Lokai's soul or something and moves further up the spooky stairs. So the real final boss?
My best creation! This will be the worst fear you've ever experienced, and then you will die!
It's like a robot gorilla thing that trips into you, so you shoot it. And then there's a phase 2, so you shoot it. And for the final epic execution, he's just fucking T-posing. He's just T-posing as you slash into him endlessly. This rank is about how I feel about the final boss. And so, the monster explodes into goo, taking Mr. Gizmo down with him, and the day is saved thanks to Zan, who dies immediately upon impact with the ground. Or not.
My name isn't Johnny. It's the super ultra sexy hero, Zan.
The hero from the land of the rising sun.
And that's it. That's Rising Zan, the Samurai Gunman. A weird, broken mess that I am thoroughly glad that I experienced. The PlayStation 1 will always hold such an important place in my heart because it facilitated weird experimental stuff just like this. It's boring at times, it's frustrating at times, but there really wasn't anything else like it on the market at the time. I know the start of the video propping it up as a pioneer for the character action subgenre is a bit at odds with all of the complaining I did in the rest of the video, but the first attempts at most concepts are rarely usually the ones that perfect it. All of the staples of the subgenre are here, right down to the unlockable character and difficulty levels upon completing the game, though I think I might be good on the one playthrough. I didn't come here to talk about Rising Zan because I think it's a good game. I came here to talk about it because it's a very interesting game. And you know what? At the end of the day, if you watch this video and you were still interested in giving it a shot for yourself, well, I picked this up for $2. I'm sure you can find it for around the same price. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Actually, before I go, remember how earlier in the video I mentioned that the dub is the same between the localized English version and the original Japanese version? Well, for the most part, both of these versions of the game are identical, with the sole exception being the opening at the start of the game. And much like how we started, what better way to finish the video than to watch that Japanese opening? I've been Max, my Deputy X. Thank you so much for watching. Y'all take care now.
この世に無用の悪を断つ